Hello? Can you hear me yet? I'm trying to make sure that I actually did fix the problem. I think I did. If everything were so easy to fix as taking an hour or two to figure out what idiocy I did. Can you hear me yet? With Google Hangouts, I'm trying to make sure that I actually did fix the problem. I think I did. And if everything were so easy to fix as taking an hour or two to figure out what idiocy I did with Google Hangouts. Hang on one second. I think what I need to do here is turn this down, but it's listenable on Google, no, YouTube, even though I can't hear it. And what I'm seeing, this is the weirdest thing in the world. What I'm seeing is backwards. So this is Google Hangouts, and it's like a mirror. And this is YouTube, and it's delayed. So it's like a delayed mirror. And the mirror is bigger on one side than the other. It's a funhouse mirror. Oh, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating because I don't know where to sit. And all right, but there's a cat over here. It wants attention. I can't give it everything it wants, and if I pick it up, it's going to be infuriated. But I think what I'm going to do now is actually tell people on Facebook that I got the thing to work. Now, whether I can present some good results or not is a different thing entirely. I'm going to want cat. Okay. It's a Siamese cat. It was an alley cat living in Silmar before it was given to Eddie Van Halen, who gave it to me. So, hang on one second. I have to feed the cat while I'm doing this. She's going to have to wait. No, the cat can live. It's a large cat. What do you want, large cat? Okay, since I haven't told anyone I'm up, you can have me talk to the cat for a sec. You know what? The cat is very insistent. I'm going to feed the cat something, and I'll be right back. Hang on. Yeah. Come on, assistants. I'm going to give you some food. And then I have to tell people what I know. Let's go. Bye-bye. How'd that go? Eat. Please. I don't want to do either. That's the way life has become. Sometimes I have to do things besides play with the cats, such as that. My favorite thing is pink. My hair color is clear. All right, now I have returned. The next thing I'm going to do is check up the results, which I've been checking all day long, and I do not like what I'm hearing. And let everyone, where's my Google channel? Oh, it's going to come back in a sec. And let the people know that I know on Facebook that I'm up. So that will, you can look at me while I do that. If you like, I can try to put on some music. It didn't work very well last time. And the funniest thing in the world to me is that they wanted Pete Seeger's music to be licensed. Now, my parents knew Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie, actually. They're old parents, bad grandparents, they're all involved in heavy lift. And the idea that Pete Seeger needs to be paid for singing folk songs to people would appall him to the depth of his soul. So I'm going to try it again. I'm not trying to play expensive copyrighted music. I'm trying to play the people's music. Okay? I know. I understand what I'm doing. So while I do this, please don't go away if you're here. And I won't put on Joe Hill because I'll cry immediately. But I'll put on something that won't make me cry immediately. Okay, it's hard to figure out because a lot of them will. Oh, everybody knows this one. This'll do.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. It is we who plowed the prairie, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving amid the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. They have taken on those millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their body power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of atoms, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Almost done. You can have Where All the Flowers Go, which is next. Oh, no, we're going to play Solidarity Forever again. No. Here.
There once was a union maid, she never was afraid of goons and geeks and company thinks and the deputy sheriff who made the raid. She went to the union hall when a meeting it was called, and when the Legion boys come round, she always stood her ground. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union till the day I die. This union maid was wise to the tricks of company spies. She couldn't be fooled by a company stew. She'd always organize the guys. She'd always get her way. When she struck for better pay, she'd show her card to the National Guard, and this is what she'd say. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Oh, you can't scare me. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union till the day I die. You gals who want to be free, just take a tip from me. Get you a man who's a union man and join the ladies' auxiliary. Married life ain't hard when you got a union card. A union man has a happy life when he's got a union wife. Oh, you can't scare me. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Oh, you can't scare me. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union till the day I die.
Okay. That's that. I'm moving around so much because I can't. Where did this? Let's make just quit this. Quit. I hate quitting Pete Seeger because he just died, and it really has some meaning for me. I'm trying to make sure that my face is in the frame. By the way, that's why I'm moving around like an idiot. Because Hangouts, which is going to be dropped. Let's not use anything even remotely sounding like a Trump. Hangouts is going to be dropped as soon as I can drop it. But it was easier to do than Barcast because my machine is old and it doesn't have the memory to re-up the operating system. And so I can do this in Hangouts, which I hate, because it will allow me to do it. But Wirecast is extremely complicated if your operating system is 10.6.8. But my computer is fixed by the person who usually accompanies me on my my webcast. But she's had to be at work today. And so I'm here by myself. And I only wanted to say first that she and her husband are the people who fixed my computer. And they can go, I can fix some things. I can put memory on. Usually I can fix software problems. But they can build a computer from the ground up. And they do this all the time. So they'll take, she just took a laptop off of the stack of throwaways at her job and fixed it. Now she has a new laptop. So a new old laptop, but they're really good. And so I can keep my computers usually for a long, long time. But we haven't, I was very sick and we haven't got around to fiddling with putting memory. Just so I can run Photoshop. But now we have to because I'm up and to run Wirecast. And so there's that. I'm going to keep moving my head around, unfortunately, until I know that I'm in the picture for real. Because Hangouts, I always want to call it hotspot. It's really not hot. Hangouts tends to, what it does is flip you around like a mirror. So I have no idea what people are actually seeing. And if I look at that, which I can't turn off, because if I do, you can't hear me or see me. I have no idea what I actually look like. And I certainly don't do any acting or modeling anymore. Obviously not. But I did when I was younger. I certainly wasn't a runway model like I wanted to be because I'm both too short and too fat. And I thought I had control over one. I could make myself thinner, so I was anorexic for years. We can talk about that someday, and how anorexia is extremely destructive towards women, and all eating disorders are, and they are a feminist issue. And I thought I could make myself thinner, but not taller, so I did that, and I did make myself thinner and not taller. And meanwhile, I got sicker and sicker. It's a lot of why I see a lot of sickness in me today, or it's gone. I work hard. I got rid of it, but I used to always tell people I was modeling. Look at me, and I'm not really skinny though, and I'm tiny. And they didn't believe me. Well, it was because I can now say I was not a fashion model. Obviously, I was what they would call now a glamour model, which is where you go when when you can't fit into the regular movie categories. Yeah, now they have plenty more, which is good. The cat outside is yelling for me now, but the cat outside lives in many houses. And I will feed any animal that asks, including throwing cereal at the squirrels and birds that live in the tree that was cut down. And, I'll feed raccoons that are doing the nasty, I guess that's an old term, on my neighbor's roof. I'll feed them. I'll feed any animal. They all know it. People used to throw animals on my front lawn. When they didn't want them anymore, I'd have rabbits on my front lawn, or I'd have all of a sudden something would be in a box on my porch. But right now, this is more important. I really do think the podcasts that people do in favor of Bernie Sanders are helpful. I certainly think they're more helpful than making the phone calls that we're always encouraged to make. I could be wrong. But I also think that no matter what we do, we are not going to we're not going to win over the Clinton machine. I've never believed in anything like conspiracy theories before. Never. It's not my thing at all. But the way that Hillary Clinton has massacred the South with wins here, there, everywhere, tells me not that she is so loved, but that she has control over the South. Somehow she has control over the voting machines. Something. And of course, there have been voting irregularities. There were some in Nevada, which I believe are real because I knew someone who did exactly the same thing. One of the first thing she was accused of in Nevada was changing T-shirts, so people who were asking to be registered as Democrats voting for Bernie Sanders would think that they were just regular or Sanders volunteers at the polling places. Well, really they were Hillary Clinton volunteers. Which, okay, they want to wear red shirts. We've been wearing red shirts. It could be an accident. However, when you saw the T-shirts, for real, they said broad numbers. I will show you how to poll or something like that. That's not exact. A teeny tiny Hillary thing here. And at the very bottom it said, I'm with her. But really, most people are going to read, I'm sorry. They're going to read here, here's the polling place, ask me how, wow, or something, whatever it said. And they're not going to notice the Hillary stuff. And one of the things that people were saying they were doing in Nevada was bringing people to vote, because you can register on the same day. So they were bringing people over to the registration machines and registering them Democratic and for Hillary instead of Democratic only and voting for Bernie. And it was a caucus, so it was a lot of people standing around. You should look up caucus. Everyone in the United States should look up how these elections or any elections are done. And so with caucuses, just a brief example. I know this is old news, but it's very important. With caucuses in small states, people actually physically line up in favor of whichever candidate they like. That's how it works. That's a very brief explanation, but it will work here. And so you've got all these people in red shirts. Red. The Hillary campaign has been using blue for the entire campaign. And so I hope you can see this bumper sticker. I have no idea what this thing is letting you see because it's backwards and it's extremely frustrating. So, but anyway, they would see a whole bunch of people that came into caucus, and the caucus lines were, of course, extremely long. They would see a whole bunch of people in red shirts on one side, and they just automatically walk over to the red shirt side if they were for Bernie Sanders. And, okay, you did see that. It's also very delayed. It's backwards like a mirror and very delayed. So that's one of the tactics she used that everyone does know about. And the other one she did in Nevada, which I know is true because I know someone who did it, just to get on neighborhood council, positions here for him and his wife, was to bring in buses full of homeless people and to vote for Hillary Clinton. And instead of bringing them just sandwiches, which is what the people I know did, because I'm sure they didn't have the money to do it, they gave them money. And people in Nevada were saying they were seeing the money being handed out to homeless people on buses. Now, how much does Hillary Clinton care about homeless people? Enough to make them vote for her by bringing in a bus full of them. So there was that. I know this happens because the same thing happened here, was reported in the LA Times. Him and his wife were bringing in homeless people and gave them sandwiches, and they got their votes. And that Hillary Clinton's campaign is doing such a cheap little trick at a caucus tells me a lot about what her campaign is up to everywhere. Now, of course, when you do something like this in a state like Nevada, she can always use plausible deniability. Well, I didn't know. This is Richard Nixon tactics. I mean, I was a little kid when Richard Nixon was around. My parents, I remember him only probably because my parents despised him. But I do remember that, because I read all the time, he was known for cheap tricks, for band, but he did a lot of cheap, dirty tricks. And, Hillary Clinton, who has just praised Kissinger, who is also known to be a real nightmare. Oh, I look terrible in this video with these things hanging at the wrong side. They keep falling down. Hillary is using the same kind of tricks, the cheapness of them, the lowness of them, that Hillary Clinton used to use. Okay, I'll try to stop moving around so much. It's because I can't see me. My eyes aren't closed. It's the way that the camera from my back is angled. It's someone who has to sit very angled towards the camera. And in order for you to see me at all, it's really nutty. I swear, I have a day tomorrow that I thought I had to do a bunch of stuff, and I don't. So I'm going to work on this tomorrow, make sure I can get it done so it's actually worthwhile to look at and to listen to. Because I like to play the folk music that I play. And there's other stuff that I can play for you that's also very small. Like I like Peter Loeffner. And, you need breaks from having a look at me. I need breaks from having a look at me, so I'm sure you do. And I could play some really good music that nobody cares about the copyright for. And if they do, I'll pay them. I don't mind paying whoever's publishing Peter Loeffner, for God's sake. And, if people care about playing Pete Seeger, that should, if they want to give money to some company for playing Pete Seeger, that's not my problem. That should be brought out into the open. Pete Seeger, for one thing, is dead. Pete Seeger, for another thing, would be so astonished that Bernie Sanders, socialist, who's been running on the socialist platform for 3 decades, has become our candidate. I can see, I said this before, I don't know if that cast ever got on, but these are people like my parents knew, or that I'm related to, all the people I will talk about, and I can see them crying with tears of disbelief and joy that someone like Bernie Sanders, oh my goodness, because I do it. And as I've said, I'm sure that I am voting for a lot of people who are not here to vote for themselves. It means a lot to me to do that. It certainly means more to me than doing anything else I do, including making myself look better on this stupid channel. I'm laughing at myself, but it's a stupid thing for me to want, but I do. Anyway, not as much as I want Bernie Sanders to win. And apparently, now I'm going to read you some of the stuff I've been reading. It's fairly new, And of course, I don't have to look at myself because you can see parts of me. Although I have to make sure I have to lean in a direction that you can see me, which is the opposite direction of how I lean so I can see myself. And to see myself in this picture is I am twice the size, and you see delayed and huge on one side, and the other, and mirrored, and then the other side it's small and I look exhausted. I am exhausted. Maybe I'd look better without my hat, but I don't know. This is not what my channel is supposed to be about. Do you hear Bernie Bro channels talking about their appearance? No, they'll come on. They will not have changed their makeup 72 times in a day. They will not have put on their best clothes. They will not be talking about how horrible they look. They will not be talking about anything like that. They'll be talking about the issues. And eventually, I will get to talking about the feminism of how much people care about their appearance, because that's a serious feminist issue that we need to deal with. It's one of the ones that is slightly being dealt with, but it never quite is dealt with enough. And here, Bernie Bros, their ears itch, they do this, you know, I've watched plenty of them because until I started doing this, that's what I watched. And, you know, they're not wearing hats. Anyway, that's a feminist issue. But a more important issue right now is the fact that we are polling low. That's the most important issue we've got. I'm reading now, as I have been for a while, that Michigan is going for Clinton. Now, Mississippi is going for Clinton. Sanders is leading in Michigan. Okay, the last time I read, Sanders was not leading in Michigan. So Sanders is leading in Michigan. I was going to say, I expect her to win Mississippi. There's no chance that she's not going to win Mississippi. But if Sanders loses Michigan, a state as blue collar and destroyed by the last 3 decades of politics as any, apologies for making you look at my hat. I usually try to put a nice pin on. If Bernie Sanders does not win Michigan, then I will be absolutely certain, beyond any shadow of a doubt's shadow, that Hillary Clinton has something going on. I'm pretty sure anyway, because I cannot believe that the entire South, who just, you know, some of them liked her husband because he was governor of Arkansas, but a lot of people don't. They have a real distaste for the Clintons. I don't mind him so much as her, which is odd, because for a long time I felt much more empathy for her. But if the Clintons rout the South, as they seem to be doing, there's something fishy going on, I think. That's just me. It's just what I think. I never think things like that, though I usually think that there is an explanation for just about everything. That is the normal explanation, you know. You go for the most normal thing first, unless you're wearing clothing, of course. Then you go for the wackiest thing. But in this case, the most normal thing is that Black people are not dumb, that a lot of white people don't like the Clintons, that a lot of Black people probably don't like the Clintons. I don't know if there's ever been a poll of Black people. How do you actually feel about Hillary Clinton, other than what's happened very recently? I mean, has there ever been a poll in the past that talked about that? I don't think so. We worry about how women feel about Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton is definitely someone who for a long time believed all women were, yes, going to go through crotches, as if that was the only part of them that existed. But I don't think we've ever seen how Hillary is considered by Black people, by younger people, by women towards the hard left, by women, well, and the women in the right despise her almost to the last. I hate doing this like this. I'm gonna have to do these in advance and not live. Okay, we don't see how in advance of this election or any of the Hillary elections, how focus groups made up of anything other than the groups that are most likely to adore Hillary Clinton feel about Hillary Clinton. Very strange, I think. There was that brief bubble also in there about 2 years ago where she was seen on a cell phone, of all things. This was a big deal. And there were lots of photo memes, and then there was an enormous amount of Hillary support. That was during the first rise of what I cannot call third wave feminism. Oh, we can talk about that at some point. I will, because it frightens me. Don't you tell me how I should feel about my life. Don't tell me I was victimized when I know I was not. But there was that bubble when third wave feminism showed up, when Hillary was the star, and of course she missed that bubble by 2 years. And so I believe that if she was going to run 2 years ago, she would have won just because she was trendy. I mean, there are very small reasons that affect the way people think. And hipness and trendiness, whichever word you like, is one of them. And so for a while there, maybe 2010-ish, 2011, 2012, I don't remember. My husband died in 2012, and I wasn't thinking straight for a while there, so please forgive me. She was the queen of the internet, but that stopped. And some of the stuff that has happened in the interim, this is a woman who is very close to being indicted, that never gets mentioned in the press. And why are we voting for someone who is close enough to, I believe it's a federal indictment, that she's not even eligible if that comes down to run for president? How do we believe someone like that has more chances to win, which is one of the reasons that they give for her ascension in many places? How can we believe that she is a better candidate than someone who is completely clean and who's never going to be indicted for anything, and who never has been indicted for anything, and who has never been accused of cheating or lying or making stuff up or being a fake candidate or any of this stuff, a fake politician? How can we believe, in a world that is beginning to turn against a falsity, that someone who is conniving and is seen as conniving could bring in more votes than someone who has nothing in his background but decency? And that would, of course, include his arrest in 1963 for civil rights activism. Okay, so the other thing I would say about the South is this. It's minor. I think it's probably been said before. I usually try to stick to things that haven't, but it hasn't been said enough. Why would Black people vote for someone who ran against Obama? And ran against Obama in a nasty race that wasn't like this one, where one of the people running, not her, Bernie Sanders, wants to keep everything away from negative politicking and everything nice and decent and on the issues. That's Bernie Sanders. That's who he is in his own life. That's who he is in this election. And why I can't see this. Now, this is how the mainstream narrative goes, that all Black people love Obama and they are voting for Hillary Clinton because she's aligned with Obama, where Bernie Sanders is not. This is not true. What she's doing instead is something that I consider did she learn all these tricks from her husband cheating on her in all sorts of greasy ways? She's wrapping herself not only in Obama as if he were a flag, she's wrapping herself in his skin. This is horrible. This, as I have said before, and I will, I'm sure, say many, many times again, is outrageous. She grew up as a wealthy white woman. No question. You know, he grew up not even as an ordinary black guy, but as a product of miscegenation, meaning he had a white mother and a black father who, and this was considered even more horrific when he was young and being just black, which was bad enough. And they're very different in quality. And if she could run against him 4 years ago in an exceptionally unkind way, how does that make her 4 years later a champion of black people? She never has been. I watch Tim Black a lot because I think he's really great, and I watch bad names, Dr. Boyce, and I'll put this link because now I know people are actually watching me. I'll put the link in my underneath my Dr. Boyce. He has a woman on there called Yvette, and they're really, really good. And they say similar things. You know, there's something very wrong with black people who have or had, because I'm going to talk about this in a second too. You know, a large base of people who have known poverty, to suddenly feel indebted and identified with, empathetic to a rich white woman? Okay, that's Hillary Clinton. Let me see what we're doing. I'm just checking right now on Google, of all places. I was reading earlier, but right now I'm just checking what the results are over and over. So I'll just tell you in a sec. I mean, Mississippi, we don't even have to talk about. She's going to win Mississippi. Right now, Sanders is leading in Michigan. It's a much bigger state than Mississippi, and it's a much more important state in the current economy and in the current culture than Mississippi. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to insult Mississippi or anything. It's just that there have been so many losses in employment and housing, and just what makes a culture, a country in Michigan, at least that have been reported on to the general populace in the United States, that Michigan is a state to really watch. If she, with her lack of any sort of working class credentials, wins Mississippi, rather Michigan. My family is from Forsyth, Michigan. If she wins Michigan, I will be certain that there is the fix. I'm pretty certain the fix is in already anyway, because of the superdelegates, which is a show Jamie and I will do the next time she's here. But there are certain states that she should leave alone, and Michigan, I think, is one of them. Although she might, because I don't trust anything she's doing, she might squeak in under the wire and win Michigan. I think it doesn't matter, though, because of superdelegates in certain ways. We need to protest very hard against superdelegates and the Electoral College, but that's for another tape. For now, the other thing I was going to say before I give you a break of having to listen to me, and I'll try to put on some more music. It's folk music, so it shouldn't distort that badly. And it's from a CD, and I ask YouTube, they asked, do you own this? Yes, I own it. I own it in every medium it can be owned in. I own CD, on a record. Oh, for heaven's sake. I mean, my parents were folkies. Like, well, that's where I was going next. So might as well start. My parents were folkies like I am sure Bernie Sanders was. They're just a little bit older than he was. And, or is, he's alive. And so they knew a lot of these people that I play. It's very frustrating. If I play funk, it's usually LA, and I know them. If it's not LA, it's somebody from New York or someplace where somebody I know knows. I mean, these are very small communities. They're not like cities. They're not like, races or whatever we're worried about now. They're tiny communities filled with people that know each other or know somebody who knows them, and that's it. We're like families. And so please, YouTube, do not worry about my music. It's like that. And most of it's either small or I know them, or if you want to get into an argument with me about music, it's like you're talking about my family, which is actually what I'm going to talk about now. Because as I said, I listen a lot to Tim Black. I tend to listen to every single one of his tapes, and I will put a link to him. I didn't think anyone was listening to me at all, so I didn't put links to Tim Black in, or Dr. Boyce, anyway, but I will now, because I do think that they are the best people I listen to. Okay, these scraps are coming down. I'm not doing anything special right now. And I'm certainly not doing anything sexy, but the straps are driving me nuts. Okay, what I'm going to say now is what Tim Black said something about in his last tape, which is that Bernie Sanders grew up working class and Hillary Clinton grew up rich white. I've been going backwards and forwards about saying this stuff because I don't know how it's going to be taken. I was very, very heartened to hear that Tim Black took it on. I'm going to take it on too. Because he comes from a different culture than I do. I come from Bernie Sanders' culture. Exactly. I'm younger. But I'm one of the youngest there is because my parents were old and my mother's parents were really old. Her mother was almost 50 when she was born. My mother was almost 40 when I was born. So I know a lot about the Jewish left wing and the labor movement because it was central to my life growing up, even in the 70s. It was, that's who I was. And that's who my family was. They were kind of shunned by the rest of their family for being so involved in the left. And which was mostly my mother's parents, who were IWW and IWO, but deeply involved with it, not just members. And so what I would like to say is I'd like to expand a little bit, and I'll do this again, but I'd like to expand a little bit now on what Tim Black just said, which was speaking about how Bernie Sanders grew up in a Brooklyn apartment. An apartment, remember, she's in a really fancy house. He is in an apartment in Brooklyn. There's a big difference there. I want to talk about something that people probably don't even believe exists anymore. Jews that are poor. Jews that are not rich at all. Because that's how we all came here. None of us came here rich. Not that I know of. Maybe a few of us, but certainly not among my family. And certainly not among most people's family, including Bernie Sanders. The next time I discuss this, I'm gonna put up some pictures of shtetls, which is where he would have come from. His parents would have come directly out of a shtetl. And before they got here, either he's from Poland, he's from a shtetl, my God. And these are like Mississippi shacks, frankly. They're not even like apartments. They're basically like shacks and made out of wood. there's no, I mean, these are not people who had money. These are farmers and tailors and things like that, all working class, all blue collar, all lower class. That's my family. That's his family, guaranteed. I know what my family was. I can put up pictures of them if you want. I'm talking about my mother's family the most here, because that is the family I know, and that is the family I like, and that I am like. So I will say more about them. They were the ones. My grandfather was secretary of the IWW in Chicago, and my grandmother had some huge position in the IWO. If you don't know what those things are, the IWW was a huge union. And you need to look it up on Wikipedia for me to that would be better than explaining it. The IWO was like the insurance company for the people that were involved in it. And my grandmother was such a big shot in the IWO that they did her funeral at they did her memorial at the Wilshire Ebell Theater. This is many, many years ago. I was probably like 6. So I don't remember. That's why I don't remember all this stuff very well. But that's the left. That's hard left. When people get annoyed with me, I can, politically, I'll tell them, you can thank my grandfather for your 40-hour week, because before that, the employers could do whatever they wanted to you. Okay. That's when they got to America. In the Ukraine, I'm from, around Kiev, the actual village or shtetl that I am from, it's a little bit bigger than a village, a little bit more, was destroyed by the Nazis. But in the Ukraine, and people do need to know this, you could beat up a Jew, you could kill them by beating them up, and celebrate, and your whole area would celebrate, your friends, whatever, because it was barely a crime to kill a Jew. Certainly it wasn't a crime to beat them with sticks. It was a horrific form of racism, I guess. I mean, because my family was atheist, I can't call it a religion, because there were so many Jews that I knew that didn't have any religion at all. My grandfather was deeply atheist. He wouldn't have a rabbi at his funeral because he really believed what he said. And so there's a band playing. They rehearse down the street. They make me confused because the drummer usually plays really loud, and my late husband was a drummer. He's Ukrainian too, but Catholic. So when we were all, in the old country, his family was beating my family with sticks. That's what I always said too. It's true. You could beat a Jew with sticks anytime you wanted to. One thing Jews, oh God, this is what I'm afraid to say, but it is true. Jews were basically the black people of Europe, or at least Eastern Europe, where Bernie Sanders comes from. That's why we got out of there. Now, something I also will say is that even though we experienced a lot of violence from the majority culture, we did. That's not a lie. It's not an exaggeration. There was nothing as bad as slavery. So nobody took anyone's children when they were 11 years old and sold them to somebody else. I don't know what even to say, except if we have to put things on a roster, nothing beats slavery. Nothing. The only thing I'll add to that is people like my family and like Bernie Sanders understood where we came from and understood how bad it was. And we felt a real deep link with Black people in the United States. That's why you have Schwerner Cheney Goodman. That's why you have a lot of Jews involved in the civil rights movement, like Sanders, because the most serious leftists among us really, we felt like family was Black people. I know we did. I know how I grew up. When I was a kid, I would say 70% of my friends were something. I don't care about race. I think that's the best way to be. If you don't care about race, you can treat people like human beings. And I always say that about Bernie Sanders too, because I know that's what he thinks. That we're all decent and worth dignity and respect. And everyone, from the lowliest drug addict, and my husband died of drugs, so I know a lot about that. From the lowliest drug addict to, I'm not going to say the 1% because none of us can tolerate them. They're not living under the same rules as we are. But every human being that's troubled or working or, trying to just raise a family, the most basic things. Bernie Sanders believes we should all have the same opportunities, respect, dignity. And he doesn't want to draw lines in there, which I think is the best way to be. That's me. So if you dislike that, we have an argument there. On the other hand, if you want to talk to me about it, I'll talk about it. I don't care. Maybe you can convince me. But the reason it'd be hard to convince me is this. I do remember the left. I grew up in it, so I say this over and over, but it was my life until I became a music sinister, which was the only other real life I loved. But I grew up in the hard left. We'd have people he'd come to our house to go to Mexico to avoid the Vietnam War. My parents once hid a nutty person from the cops in our hotel room in the Marina del Rey when our house was being fumigated. My life was unlike most people as kids, I think. My best friend, when I was a little kid, her father was a drug dealer and was going down for the third time. And he had a bunch of kids, 4 maybe. They're all daughters, and they were very upset about this. And so that's my life. And I talk a lot about the way the left worked and what we believed. And one of the things about the left that I don't think most people know is that during the Vietnam War era and afterwards, during and afterwards, with the original Vietnam anti-war movement, with the Yippies, with the Black Power movement, Black Panthers, stuff like that. Probably with feminism, although I haven't read about this. Jenny can probably tell you. A lot of the reason that our movements eventually fell apart was because of what my mother called moles, meaning spies in the ointment. We had a lot of spies in the ointment. And so help me. I despair about identity politics because I think it's divisive. Which you'll have me talk about a lot because I think it really plays to Sanders' message because he refuses to cater. He refuses to pander to identity politics, which she has taken up as if it were her banner. Rich white woman, believes in everyone who's weird, who's different. It's like, excuse me, but bullshit. She's like the people we all went to school with, all of us who are different, who kind of look down on us and who are in student council and sorry, I won't swear on camera, but okay. When I say that we were destroyed by spies in the ointment, which I think is true, I also think that spies in the ointment have a lot to do with why we are stuck with a very different, in fact, oppositional way of thinking to the way we thought in the civil rights movement. What's going on now, and which is to me very frightening, is that instead of wanting everyone to be one. Everyone equal. That's what civil rights are about, always. Instead of wanting that and working towards that. So when all of us in our strange or non-majority positions, our cultures, our characters, our races, whatever you want, instead of all of us working against systemic problems in the government, or, you know, things like working against poverty in general, we now work for only poverty, minor, well, not necessarily minor, but minuter, smaller problems with poverty against Group X. You know, Group X will work for Group X and for no one else. And then, for example, and I do think this is one of the very worst issues we've had. So, no, I don't think it's nothing at all. I'm not saying this is actually one of the only issues I've thought in recent years that the media is actually reporting on that's real, is the cops shooting black people. It's just horrific, horrible, horrible, horrible. You know, but I don't think people also know that they do the same to poor whites, especially poor whites that have any involvement with drugs. And how much stronger the movement would be, and this is what we need to elect Sanders, is if all of us who have been victimized by police or have had, say, just offhand, husbands that were victimized by cops, dead husbands who were victimized by cops, all of us, instead of just one little, well, it's a big section, this one section of us, imagine how much stronger that movement would be. And it would be. And I think part of the reason you get Trump voters is this divisiveness, is the fact that, you know, some of those people, Trump voting just makes me insane, because it's mostly people voting against their own interests to an incredible degree. But when you ignore the problems of poor people in general, which we do, we don't look at poverty as an overall problem unless we're trying to prove that black people aren't the only people who are poor, which is absolutely true. They're not the only people on welfare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, there's a fabulous article in Slate. It's one of the best articles I've read in years about the very famous welfare queen, pretending to be black when she was actually Southern white, which is fabulous, but you can find it. If we need to embrace the people we've thrown away through identity politics. And I say this in part because I think identity politics, I apologize for saying this, but I believe it, were created by moles, spies in the system, that knew that the more that, you know, divide and conquer. You divide your left into little tiny groups that only care about that group. And you will have no unified people against, say, the 1%. You get Occupy, but it didn't, you know, it fired people up a little bit, but we're pretty much still living in the pre-Occupy world without much change. But what you need instead is heavier Occupy type movements that will appeal to people that aren't in their 20s, don't want to hang around and sleep in a park with a bunch of other people, like camping and whatever, you know, that aren't cool. You'll need to have an Occupy movement that not only has a few people that aren't cool, that aren't, you know, whatever you want. Don't even start me on the word hipster. It's not yours. And you need people that come from all segments of society to join in a movement to oust the people that own almost everything there is. I mean, how much more stronger can I put it? They not like slavery. I apologize because it's a bad analogy. It's not a real one. There's no excuse for slavery now, because there still is some, which I could talk about later. But in the when they came here, American slavery. I can't talk about it. It's not mine, except to say that you don't sell people's kids. Indentured servitude without selling people's kids is bad. But there's worse, and that was slavery. That's what I can say. It's not mine. Mine is the shtekels. I can talk about that. And the beatings, and the setting people's homes on fire. And how everybody was terrified all the time because the Cossacks would get drunk. And not just the Cossacks, but just general Russians, Ukrainians, whichever you like. And Polish, that doesn't matter. Eastern Europeans, they get drunk and they'd set your house on fire, and there was nothing you could do because you didn't count as a human being. And that's Bernie Sanders' parents' world. That's why he's here. That's why he wants to make a change. He doesn't want things like that to happen to anyone. He doesn't even want small versions of things like that to happen to anyone. That's why he's running for president. That's why he doesn't use, as I said before, buzzwords. And it's the same thing. He's trying to raise all boats. He wants to raise them all of us. And I think what happened in the 60s and the 70s is, I'm sure most people know about McCarthyism. So when McCarthyism ended, the ideas behind McCarthyism didn't come to the end. They sent, and what's her thing? J. Edgar Hoover was still there. They would send in people. I mean, at some point, it was, Jamie will say this because she'll remember better than I will. At some point, there was like, guess who is actually not in this group that's a spy, because there were so many spies across the movement and the various movements. And so it would have been easy for someone both attractive and charismatic and lively, and someone who, would make people pay attention, to turn the dialogue to something that was more of the way the government wanted us to live. And I think that's what happened with identity politics, because we're slicing, I used to be a chef, we're slicing the meat like as if it's rice paper when we divide every single gender identity or race identity or whatever. We're slicing everything so thin and moving those slices apart. You can picture this, like on a metal table where you make sandwiches. This slice is here, this slice is here, this slice is here, this slice is here, but you're not making sandwiches with them anymore. You're just slicing them and letting them sit, and they can roll around or do whatever they want in their slice. What you need to do is take the damn thing together, make it back into a sandwich, and then put a little arsenic on it and feed it to Donald Trump. Or, that's metaphoric. And not just Donald Trump. The 1%. That's also metaphoric. But that would make sense. That's what you need to do. We need to stand together. And if we don't do that, you can say things like, well, black people like Hillary Clinton. It's like, why? Why in heaven's name would black people like a rich white woman who was for segregation when Bernie Sanders was fighting against it? Why? That ran against Obama in a very nasty campaign. Why would black people like her? It doesn't make any sense. We need to not be this anymore. We need to be, I'll put on some more music in a sec because I'm almost done, and then I'll give you the final results. Because listening to me for more than an hour, I think, is probably exhausting. Maybe 15 minutes. At least I'm not complaining about how I look through the whole thing. I thought I might do that if I was alone because that's what I do, but I didn't. I only did a little, so I get congratulations for that. And I think that because I already put on Solidarity Together, and I don't think I have We Shall Overcome particularly on this particular CD. And then I'll get from YouTube. You have used a copyrighted CD. This I've gabbered about for a long time today. But it just really bothers me because I know how very much this music is meant to be disseminated. It's a musical diaspora throughout the world to bring people together, so we can all have a good world where everything is equal for all of us. How did that ever stop being our main goal? To have goodness in the world that is equal for all of us. I don't understand. But okay, here I'll put on, let's see. Well, I can put on Bourgeois Blues. We couldn't get it to work last time, and Jamie loves it. And then I'll try and see. Oh, I'll put on We Shall Overcome after that. So here you go. You get 2 songs.
Me and my wife went all over town. Everywhere we went, the people turned us down. Lord, it's a bourgeois town. Woo, it's a bourgeois town. I got the bourgeois blues. I'm gonna spread the news all around. Come all of you people and listen to me. Don't try to buy no home in Washington, D.C. Lord, it's a bourgeois town. Woo, it's a bourgeois town. I got the bourgeois blues. I'm gonna spread the news all around. The home of the brave, the land of the free. I don't want to be mistreated by no bourgeoisie, Lord. It's a bourgeois town. Woo, it's a bourgeois town. I got the bourgeois blues. I'm gonna spread the news all around.
I dedicate that one to my next door neighbor, who is, I think, Airbnb, or he's a sublet or something. Somebody who's just disgraceful. I dedicate that particular song to the gentrifying idiot who lives in my building and drives a BMW SUV and almost set the entire building on fire by leaving socks on a heater after leaving the house, and which I had to call the fire department about, and they had to break in through the windows. I used to live there, so I knew how to do it. Rob used to break in all the time, my late husband. And when I lived there, he didn't break in when anybody else lived there. And so when I told them that I had done this, I wrote them a note. It wasn't the nicest note. It wasn't the worst note. I have yet to be thanked for not letting their house explode. Unbelievable people. Unbelievable people. You know, why should we all not fight to get rid of things like that? I don't know. All of us. No, it doesn't mean that worse things haven't happened to you or your people than they have to me or my people. This is an idiotic argument. Think about it. All of us who have similar goals. None of us have any money. My clothes are good, but I have no money, guaranteed. My clothes are old. I'm a clothing buyer. Not like just for entertainment, but for what a lot of times I do it for a living, flip clothing as I can. And all of us who have no money, all of us who, think of how much more effective it would be if everyone from every state, because I'm thinking about 60s movements, would hear something like what happened in Flint with the water. And they would get it hard from all of us. They need to do that for everything. Not just what the media finds trendy. The mainstream media and what they find trendy. That includes Hillary Clinton. We don't need this. We need to band together once again. And if we band together, we'll get Bernie Sanders. We'll get me, Bernie Sanders. We'll get Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders will do every single thing he possibly can do, including fighting whatever Congress he's stuck with like you would not believe, to get the right things passed. This is his last chance, That's why he ran. I understand this. He's got important things to do that need doing that no one else is bothering to do. So Bernie Sanders ran the last time he could, just in case. Let's give it to him. Come on, we can. We can. He's for us, we're for him. Let's go. Good night. Pink glove this time.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Yes, for anyone who's still there.
Oh my God, what is this land of
I'm
America?
still here.
So
And I
many
did want to say one
people
thing that I, of
traveling
course,
there.
forgot, which was, here we can put on so you can see your running back. Open that one. Oh, I love this one. Well, this one makes me cry, but I'll put it on though.
I'm gonna
No.
lay down.
Because we used to sing this all the time in my house. I'm thinking of doing something that might be interesting, which would be to have. Am I there? Okay. Which would be to have everybody who wants to, since I know people actually look at the station, which I didn't expect. Anybody who's interested, we could do something where anyone wants to send me themselves singing. I like Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night. That song. Not with a whole bunch of Pro Tool stuff, not fancy. Just like a folk song. I like Joe Hill the best. But if you want, you can simply, oh, We Shall Overcome, or what's the other one that is so important? Which side are you on? And if you want to do it as a video, you could send it to me, or if you want to just do it as MP3 or MP4, you can send it to me and I'll play it on my channel. Because I think that if we had, instead of just these phone calls, if we had get-togethers that weren't like the typical ones we go to for all politicians now, where everybody just sits in a circle and yaks, and then you go home. Maybe somebody has like donuts or something. If we had big sing-alongs, this is just an insane thing to say. But there's got to be more people than me that remember songs like We Shall Overcome. And the singing brought people together incredibly. It doesn't matter which songs they are. I mean, you want to have it, warm and fit everyone. But it doesn't matter what songs they are. Just if we sat and did that, and everyone knew that we were going to come in, didn't matter what your voice sounded like, and we're gonna sing together, and we're gonna have cookies or dinner, or how potluck would be a good thing. If we treated our meetings like parties instead of like dull things done on a more, some of these meetings are in the morning, but if we had everybody know that it was going to be the joy of the election, the joy of the Sanders Revolution, instead of just one more stupid meeting that we have to go to. At least we can pass the stick. I've said this over and over too, but you haven't heard it, so I'll say the only time I'm willing to pass the stick is if I eat one, and that was pretty much it, except for at the moment what I've got is Bernie Sanders 60%, 50.9 in Michigan. Hillary Clinton, 47.2. This is a tough challenge. Let's hope she doesn't do something that he can't beat, because he's going to beat us all with his. He's going to beat Hillary Clinton, not all of us. We're going to beat Hillary Clinton, all of us, with Bernie Sanders, if it's a clean election. Okay, that's it for me. I hope somebody enjoyed this. I'll look better next time. I always say that, but I'm beat. I can tell by the circles under my eyes. Next time I won't force you to watch that. Good night.